Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Tristan Rallings, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Chief Petty Officer Elizabeth Miller. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of the following school. From Queensland, Hillcrest Christian College, Reedy Creek. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Percy William Venning. Percy Venning was born on the 4th of October 1894 to William and Margaret Venning of Corn, South Australia. After some time spent in the Corn and Wellington districts of South Australia's mid-north, the Venning family moved to Pinaroo, where William continued farming. At the time, the town of Pinaroo was flourishing as a result of a new railway line, and Percy was the first scholar to be enrolled at the school built in 1906. He became an active member of the local rifle club, as well as the Methodist Church Sunday School and its young men's class. Percy Venning was described as a quiet, unassuming lad, and worked on his father's farm after finishing his education. Percy enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force shortly after the outbreak of war in 1914. He was posted to the 10th Battalion, and after a period of training in Australia, left for the active service overseas, arriving in Egypt early December 1914. There, Private Venning continued training in the desert with his battalion until April the following year, when they were sent to Gallipoli. In the early hours of the 25th of April 1915, men of the 10th Battalion rode silently towards the Turkish shore at what would become known as Anzac Cove. The war diary of the battalion records that no sound was heard except the splash of the oars. We thought that our landing was to be effected quite unopposed, but when our boats were within about 30 yards of the beach, a rifle was fired from the hill in front of us above the beach, right in front of where we were heading for. Almost immediately, heavy rifle and machine gun fire was opened upon us. The men finished rowing to the shore and dashed for the cliffs at the back of the beach. For several days, the 10th Battalion was heavily involved in establishing and defending a precarious front line on the heights above Anzac Cove. Not long after landing, Private Venning was in a dangerous forward position with a group of men who were running short of water. Volunteers were called for to make an attempt to go and get some. Percy Venning volunteered to make the dash across the open plateau, but as he ran, he was hit by a sniper's bullet and badly wounded. Somehow Percy was brought in by his mates and taken to the beach, where he was put on a ship bound for Egypt. His wounds were too serious, however, and on the 28th of April 1915, he died on board HMT Gulliker and was buried at sea. Percy Venning is commemorated on a stone tablet in the school at Pinaroo, where he was first student enrolled. The town remembered him as a general favourite who died as he lived, a true, noble, heroic and Christian man. He was also commemorated on the Lone Pine Memorial on the Gallipoli Peninsula. He was 20 years old. Percy Venning's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died by serving the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Percy William Venning, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Ladies and gentlemen and students, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen and students, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.